opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program are not those of the owners, advertisers, and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3. Nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
If you have a dream, what are you waiting for? The Development Bank has what you need and more. We aim to build stronger communities. That's why we have so many opportunities. Business loans, student loans, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah, financing your dream home, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah. Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis. We make a sustained positive difference in your life.
Welcome to the customer support portal, where we have made it easier for you to contact us. It starts with your question, email, a message, phone call, or a search on our website. Our CSP provides prompt and efficient solutions to your problems. We pride ourselves on treating our clients responsibly and ensuring your information is kept safe. Log on to www.skndb.net and send us a ticket or email us at customersupport@skndb.com. You may also call us directly at 869-465-2288, extension 1322, or 954-353-1003.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is one? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmstkits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your calls. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening and welcome to Fear No Favor. I'd like to say a special good evening to Nayan, Anish, Zaya, Newrish Nital, and Nadia Walters. Good evening to all of you. Hope that you're doing fine. Now we're going to be looking at a few issues. Some might be a bit sensitive, but I think they are worthy of being discussed in the public's domain. We want to be looking at the Basse High School issue. We want to be looking at what would happen or what might have happened had only persons on the ground within the last week were the ones who voted. Not that whatever happened was illegal, but I'm just saying that we can look at that if there was a way to subtract some figures here and there and see what the outcome would have been. That would be nice. So those two main issues. And a third one is persons who feel that when a particular party takes the helm in government, they're supposed to look after only, presumably, persons who voted for them or supported them. That is something that we have to done away with. I would like to look at that one first because during the election, you had CCM, you had NRP, you had PAM, you had Labour, you had PLP. And I think you had one or two other parties, another one in St. Kitts, another one in Nevis. But the major competitors were those that I named. And of course, Labour turned out to be victorious. When elections are taking place, we are divided into various sections. We are divided into various sections due to where maybe our loyalty is, or who might have offered better opportunities for the future, or who might have offered something on the spur at the moment. All those are factors that would influence the minds, and of course, it will trickle down to the finger of the individual voters. When election is over and Dr. Joe and his ministers take over, they are now responsible not only for the supporters of the Labour Party, they are responsible for CCM supporters, NRP supporters, PLP supporters, Labour supporters, PAM supporters. In other words, they are responsible for the entire population of our federation, even those who did not vote, even the unborn ones who are coming thereafter. They are responsible for every single Kitty division. And we have to be careful with this culture that we have nurtured throughout the years, where only supporters of the party whose administration control things should really be looked out for. I'm not saying that is the case, but we have some supporters of the Labour Party. I don't even know if they are genuine supporters, because in recent times you had persons jumping around like some frogs. Wherever they end up might not even be a permanent position, might be a position based on convenience and perception. They want to be perceived as if they are Labour. It is convenient for them to portray themselves as Labour, and maybe it is convenient for them not to portray themselves as opposition to Labour. But Dr. Joe and his administration, they are responsible for every single individual who is a part of our population and residing in St. Kitts Nevis. When persons want to utilize the ministers and the Prime Minister to take out their bitterness on other persons for whatever reason, sometimes they might not even have a reason. They just would like to see people suffer. And that cannot be good for any society. You're going to ask them to turn away A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right down to Z. You like them to dismiss, find reasons to send home everybody but you. And sometimes you, the individual, was a part of government employment when many persons felt that you neither had the experience, the skill set, qualification, nothing at all to warrant having a government job. But yet, there were persons who were empathetic towards you. And they fought, they resisted the notion that you should not have a job because you have people to feed, you have mouth to feed. So they did not do that to you. How can you come around this time and strongly demand that your ministers and your prime minister get rid of A, B, C, D, E right down to Z? How could that cross your mind? You're dealing with other human beings. There are ramifications for actions like that. Let us suppose they were foolish enough to abide by what you're saying without even thinking because you're a loyal supporter and they want to do whatever you say. And they did that. Every person that is sent home would have had several other persons depending on them to eat, for clothing, for shelter, for progressing life. Persons were the dependents. When you send home the breadwinner, who would take care of those needs? I'm not even talking about wants. Who would take care of those needs of the dependents of the persons who you thought it was okay to send home? Why do we want to cultivate such a culture? Why do we want to nurture something so distasteful and so insensitive? Why would ministers even want to listen to people like that? They should be paid no regard whatsoever. All of us are kidney visions. All of us will have to live here. When elections are over, we find ourselves under one umbrella to bring about betterment for every individual in our federation, regardless of party affiliation. And of course, I might have some political appointees, and those are sensitive areas depending on where those individuals are working. However, you can have a political appointee who is performing the task given to them so nicely, they're so productive, that despite the fact that they might not have supported your administration or your party, they are fitting in nicely and doing their work. You might have a lot of loyal supporters who might be vying for that position, but could they even match up against that individual? And if they cannot, why send home or why move around that person just to please somebody who would like to experience the gratification of seeing that individual move? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. However, if a person is in a position, whether politically appointed or whatever, you're in a position and you're not performing, maybe you're deliberately sabotaging the work of the current administration, then they can take you to task. They can even warn you and tell you XYZ is the case, you're a good worker, XYZ, fall in line. And of course, you can be placed on what you call an informal probation, meaning that you're being observed, and we'll see where we go from there. And if the person comes around full throttle, full circle, why would you even want to interfere with the person again? And removing somebody from a position does not always introduce the ultimate, It's not the ultimate of going home. You can move around the person to different departments. Your thing is to put bread in people's mouth and to keep bread in people's mouth for a sustained period of time, for your whole 5 years. And who knows, maybe these same persons who might have voted against you in the last election might feel so good about what you did and the principles that you exhibited the attributes, you could win them over. So we have to be very careful. People who support a party can lead to the destruction of that party when they're in government because of those same requests and expectations, negative expectations they have of the persons who they elected. Some of them might be the most problematic you have in the working environment. They feel, well, is my party in power? I ain't got to do. They give me 10 things to do. I could just do 1 or 2, and I good. Because they know where my loyalty is, and they are not going to interfere with me. That is like blessed assurance. They are assured that regardless of whether they do 1 out of the 10 that they had to do, or 2 out of the 10, they don't have to worry. I believe on the other side, however, these are the persons, when asked to do 10 things, should be doing 11, 12, and 13 because they want to make their party look good while they're at the helm of the administration, the federal administration level. You should be trying to make your party look good, not refusing to do work because you know that they know that you're loyal, and they would never send you home, or they would never push you or move you or reprimand you. And that is where we make a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes. We have to put our best feet forward and do what we have to do for the benefit of the greatest number of people. And in this day and age, no politician should be taking signals or instructions from anybody that they'll prefer if Mr. X or Mr. P or Mr. Z would go home, even if there's absolutely no reason for doing that. That is where criminal activities would start up. Because from the day you push back, you force someone to be placed under that umbrella of to survive at all costs, that is where criminal activities would start. Nobody would be a breadwinner for their dependents and wake up at their time and can't find breakfast to give the people, cannot find lunch, cannot find dinner. They would do things because their dependents would have to survive. And we have to be very careful that we do not provide a catalyst to get something of that nature to propagate out of control. We have to be very careful. So don't think sending home somebody taking bread, that's a full stop. Take bread out of their mouth, full stop. There's no full stop, there's a comma. Take bread out of their mouth, comma. So the dependents would suffer and would have to make a choice between living and dying. And of course, given the nature of mankind, they would choose to survive. Then whatever it takes to survive, they would have it done. Not only them, but their dependents as well. So we have to be guarded against such utterance. We have to change that mindset. Because you cannot feel comfortable looking at another person suffer. That can't bring you any comfort. It might bring you some momentary gratification. But what happens when you lay on your bed, facing the roof of your house, the inside, the ceiling? How can you sleep? How can you rest? Remember, karma doesn't have any menu. It serves you what you deserve. Karma has absolutely no menu. Karma serves you whatever you deserve. So bear that in mind. I know when persons do things like this, People like to go back and wish that the hands of the clock can be turned back so that that person who is now suggesting that could now be forced to experience that to see how they would feel with the now medication that they're dishing out. We got to live as one. Live and let live. We cannot afford to be so wicked towards persons. Cannot afford that. People doing the work and they're being rather productive, adding to the gross domestic product in a legal and nice way. Leave people alone. It is the duty. You might say, look, I voted for this party because I wanted them to go into government so that they can put me in a job. Well, that is not the only way to do it. You don't have to replace in order for somebody to get a job. The fact that you would have voted for these people, you're confident that they have the know-how, they'll formulate the policy, and they create opportunities. So if you have 1,000 persons in job positions, they could add 1,005, 2,000, 2,003. Just increase the opportunity for persons to get work. If you have 1,000, you don't have to fire 300 and hire back 300 and stick to that magic figure, 1,000. Your job is to be as creative in thinking. You have to be a thinker and provide opportunities for persons. Some persons only want to live for today, for tomorrow. Give me this and I vote for you. But what about the futuristic aspect of your well-being? You have to look at that as well. You have to look at that. You don't have to go to university to understand how to compare and how to contrast. And when somebody is making you a realistic promise, a doable promise, than one that sounds good but is the chance of doing it is improbable. You have to be able to compare. And you have to be reminded that you might have voted for a politician to do X, Y, Z, because from the outside, it might look very feasible. But as you get closer to the nucleus of happenings, you realize that it cannot be retrofitted. So it cannot happen. It looks feasible from the outside. When you go in, it might not be feasible. Part of it might be feasible, and the other parts might not be. So that is why sometimes politicians will get bad names, because people are not like chemicals inside of a lab, as if you're doing some physical chemistry. You're talking about human beings, and you cannot take them and put them in a lab, because somebody would wake up and respond in a certain way to A and get up a week after and respond totally different to that same situation A. So we're dealing with human beings, and things would change. The environment could remain the same, but person's mindset and degree of satisfaction and expectations could change. Or the environment itself could change. And despite the person being constant with what they presented you with, it might no longer be applicable. Then you blame people about moving goalposts. They did not move the goalposts. And sometimes it's the way you look at things, Sometimes things can be seen differently if you only change the way you look at things. Just try that. When things seem as if they're not changing, maybe the ideal thing for you to do is to change the way you look at things. Change that lens, change that focal lens. And despite the negative or the inappropriate aspect of something that you might have been seeing, you'll be surprised at the same thing you're looking at, but from a different angle, different perspective, a different mindset, it will look so totally different and be so pleasant in appearance. And that same thing never did change. We have to be very careful. Doesn't take any degree for you to understand what life on the local scene is about. It just called for you to understand what took place before, what is happening now, and that can give you some degree of comparison. You can even extrapolate. If this is happening in today's time, what might it look like in 10 days' time? You know, based on the trajectory, based on how things looking, based on where they're heading. You don't have to be a scientist to do those things. You're supposed to be able to have a reasonable idea as to what would happen 3 days later, 4 days later, a week later, barring any extreme circumstances. You're supposed to be able to predict what might happen if you continue on a particular trajectory. If a vehicle traveling 5 miles per hour at that constant speed, you should be able to predict that after the first hour, that vehicle would be in carry-on if it's going that way. And then after the next hour, it would be in tabernacle. You understand? That is what you call extrapolation based on the information you have on the trajectory that is being taken. What can you reasonably expect to happen given the current situation and the circumstances and factors that are present? Things must not always happen first for you to understand what might happen. Of course, you leave a little bit of room for disappointment because other things can happen. But given all factors remaining constant, you should be able to make reasonable and realistic predictions. So let us continue to work together. We have a young government still in its embryonic stages, trying to get their feet stabilized, and we shall see what would happen going forward. Remember that we cannot always predict things because circumstances can change, but at least there must be an explanation to justify why something that seemingly was headed there did not end up there, but instead end up over here. It's just clear-mindedness and thinking objectively. There's too much subjectivity pumped into our assessments. Too much subjectivity. We could be a little bit more objective. Yes, sometimes it's difficult for subjects to be objective. It's like judging a calypso. You're given a criteria, and you're asked to adjudicate calypsonian based on your explication of the songs that they put over. And like Chuck does say, it's very difficult to judge culture. Because you sing about a rat, you sing about a cat, somebody sing about a... Who give you the authority to say which song was better? So some degree of subjectivity would have to go into it. But at least you have a criteria to offer you some objective guidance, even though those objective guidance heavily depends on subjective assessments. But we can be more, and put it plain and simple, we can be more understanding. Sometimes we might not always agree with what persons might have said, but we can tolerate. We can agree to disagree. And tolerance is key. I ain't agree with him, but I don't tolerate it. And while you're tolerating it, you're trying to see what you can do, either to reject or to eventually accept. You have to be thinking, how could a human being wake up and there's actually no thinking at all on a particular day? Today is Thursday. How could you go through tomorrow with absolutely no thinking, just as you wake up, with the extent to which you would have thought before you got back to sleep Friday evening with that on the same level, not even a centimeter more? That is disgusting. At the end of each day, you have to ask yourself, what progress? What is the extent of progress I would have made? And if it is zero, that is a wasted day. A wasted day. You must be able to say, I woke up like this, I achieved that, I made this progress along that path. At least I'm getting closer to something. But if you wake up day after day after day after day, at the same set point, something has to be wrong. Something would have to be wrong. You are alive. You have a brain. Some people seem as if they want the brain to remain intact. Newborn, virgin brain. And the closer your brain remains to being intact, is the less progress you would make, because the less you would be thinking. Let us take a break, acknowledge our sponsor, and come back.
If you have a dream, what are you waiting for? The Development Bank has what you need and more. We aim to build stronger communities. That's why we have so many opportunities. Business loans, student loans, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah, financing your dream home, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah. Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis. We make a sustained positive difference in your life.
Welcome to the customer support portal, where we have made it easier for you to contact us. It starts with your question, email, a message, phone call, or a search on our website. Our CSP provides prompt and efficient solutions to your problems. We pride ourselves on treating our clients responsibly and ensuring your information is kept safe. Log on to www.skndb.net and send us a ticket or email us at customersupport@skndb.com. You may also call us directly at 869-465-2288, extension 1322, or 954-353-1003.
Fellow citizens, near and far.
Welcome back to Fear Nor Favor. Now let us look at the situation of the Bastia High School. The previous administration would have made a decision that the Bastia High School was going to be relocated over at the Ponds Extension area. And many persons objected. Some persons agreed with the science that even though it is built on the aquifer, Bastia Valley Aquifer, there would be no effluent entering vertically downwards to percolate into the soil and possibly get into the Bastia Valley Aquifer. My understanding is that the effluent would have been taken off compound and be deposited somewhere that is safe for it to be deposited. Anyhow, persons ask the question, suppose there was an accident, because maybe they know we have a history of poorly maintaining structures that we would have constructed. So they went to the extreme and indicated that an accident could have happened, and then you could have water going downwards. But with the ideal situation where everything is working, the effluent would have been taken off compound and be deposited elsewhere. Now, you had a change of government, and the persons at the helm currently, they opposed the building of the Bastia High School on the Bastia Valley Aquifer. They were heavily against it. Now we are hearing that it is the intention of the present government to construct the Bastia High School on the old compound where the Bastia High School was prior to it being abandoned. We have to look at that situation carefully. There are several factors that we have to take into consideration. That Bastia High School compound is not as simple as just looking at it on the surface and decide, well, nothing wrong. If you had molds, the molds were removed, and molds are not so easily removed. Eh? You had molds, so you had the best persons employed to remove the molds. Let us assume that you remove every single one. I don't know if they could find the blueprint for the Bastia High School, a copy of that compound, all the piping and everything for the potable water, the grey water, the black water. If my understanding is that those blueprints cannot be located, and if that is the case, you have a lot of work to do before you can actually rebuild or add on or make adjustments to the existing Bastia High School. I can recall one time they were looking for a pipe, a sewage pipe, and they dug up on the Bastia High School compound itself, and eventually they found the pipe over in Carnival City, because there was no blueprint to really guide them as to what is happening here. So you might have had cross-contamination, where the water that people would use for drinking and everything else was contaminated with sewage water from the bathroom. So that's a possibility. It is my understanding that when that structure was in its early stages, big stone, or a set of big stone, would have blocked off the entrance into a piping area. So therefore, the effluent was not always going down nicely into the piping. And as such, behind the staff room on the western campus, seemingly used to have a very wet area, maybe 70% of the time. And my understanding is that it was a result of stones blocking the pipeway to pipe off the water. And then the piping that they had proved to be, with the passage of time, proved to be too small. And they needed to increase the diameter of the piping that they have. And as such, the compound over there on the ground was heavily contaminated. Maybe the pipes were laid there many, many years ago. They might have corroded. Maybe there's a need to have the piping replaced with PVC, polyvinyl chloride piping. And it would take some work to get the Bastille High School compound fitted properly with the appropriate fittings of pipes to avoid cross-contamination, sewage water and potable water. And once sewage water is accumulating and not moving as it ought to move, bacteria and other pathogens will always be associated with that environment. Bacteria, they multiply exponentially, and the numbers can go up very quickly. Another aspect of bacteria increasing exponentially is that when they reproduce, they produce a gas called hydrogen sulfide. That hydrogen sulfide can be dangerous to human beings because you would be there standing and you're inhaling hydrogen sulfide gas, and then all of a sudden you're not smelling anything. But then someone fresh on the scene would come and ask you, how can you be standing there in that scent? The reason they could detect that scent and you're no longer detecting that scent is because your sense to smell would have gone numb because of the concentration of hydrogen sulfide gas that you would have inhaled. If you continue to inhale that level of concentration, you can basically pass out from inhaling. That is not a scent you would encounter across by the prison station complex on Kearn Street. That is the scent that bacteria would give off when they are reproducing. Anyhow, hydrogen sulfide gas is photosensitive, meaning that it is broken down when it is exposed to sunlight. So the danger in that now is that you might have it there. The sunlight might come out of such intensity that it destroys what is there for the time being. When it goes down, the hydrogen sulfide comes back up. So it could be there playing games with persons who are trying to monitor what is going on and create some factors that can be hindrances to solving a problem that might have seemed so obvious, so easily detected. There is work to be done underneath. They will have to dig down, run some new pipings, and ensure that everything is set before they now put a structure above. Whether they will demolish the one that they have or utilize it, because it is still a strong building, despite the fact that blocks and those other stuff would have a lifespan. You know, you would have to be careful and see what the strength of that building is before you can start retrofitting. Some people feel it might be better to just demolish the whole structure and put up a brand new one. By so doing, you'll get a better understanding of what is underneath. Some people might think that the demolition might be too expensive. And such, they might just try to retrofit, add on a few things here and there. But if you're not absolutely certain as to what is under that building, if you're not absolutely certain as to how the piping network goes under there, you can be taking a risk of putting a school in an area where you're not absolutely certain what is happening. So my suggestion would be, if they want to put it back there, they should dig out, demolish the entire Bastia High School as it is on the eastern campus and on the western campus. Just demolish. So that will take another 2 to 3 years to really get going. Do not give the children and the teachers and the society, the general public, hope that this thing is going to happen within a year. It cannot happen. It cannot even happen within 2 years, because you'd want to improve on the various departments and various blocks, the various sections where students would be. And if you're going to do all of that, it will take at least 3 years to complete, and complete properly. Unless you're just going to knock back up the classes that you had before and do not add anything. You have modern technology you might want to utilize at the Bastia High School when you decide to put it back at the old site. No, that is just physical factors that would be considered. Now, we have to understand why the Bastia High School was moved and the children attended a makeshift structure at Taylor's Range area. It was said that it was highly contaminated. And you see, persons would have to be careful when they're reading the reports from CAFA and those institutions that we have such great respect for. The report did indicate that there is no single factor that they can pinpoint to be blamed for the then condition of the Bastia High School. Some people seen it as if the report said not a single thing happened to the Bastia High School. They say no single factor, no single agent can be identified as a cause for those pathogens that existed at the Bastia High School at that time. In other words, you might have 1 million, but they cannot pinpoint one, because it might have been a contribution from 40, from 100, from 1,000. So we have to be very careful when we read in scientific reports. They had pathogens or organisms that they said that they did not identify. Well, if they did not identify them, you don't know if these that they did not identify were the ones that were creating problems for the teachers and the students. We have to be careful. So when some persons call in on radio stations and some hosts encourage people to really report as if they're spinning a cricket ball, you have to be careful of the information you put into the public's domain. They said they could not identify a single agent that was responsible. They did not say not a single thing was wrong with the Bastia High School. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity to talk to two of the parties who were conducting the research at Bassi High School. I think I was invited there by, I'm not absolutely certain, but I was invited there to meet with this. It could have been Miss Carlin Morton or Mr. Ron Collins, or a combination. And I spoke to a gentleman and a lady. I think the lady was pregnant at the time. And I asked of them, why isn't this report a little bit more elaborate? Why aren't you doing much more to clear up the doubts that members of the general population had? And one of them responded that you cannot pay for sprat and get lobster. In other words, they came to St. Kitts to do a particular project. That is what they were being paid for, to do a particular project, and they cannot go outside the realm of that, despite realizing the need to have gone deeper and wider. They could not go outside of that because, as the guy said, we only paid for sprat, and we could not therefore get lobster. And I understood, and I smiled, and both of them smiled back when they did indicate that. We had to rely on that report that was not elaborate enough to guide us to make decisions. Well, if you're in doubt, you're not dealing with big stones or cargo. You're dealing with people's children. You're dealing with human beings. So if you're in doubt, you got to keep out. If they said they didn't identify certain organisms for whatever reason, and they did not do the work in a more extensive way. So you didn't identify some organism, you didn't go as deeply and as widely as you ought to have, because only that was paid for. Then you must be in doubt. You can't keep people, children in that environment. You cannot keep people, children. You couldn't keep people, children in that environment. So then a decision had to be made. So it is not nice for persons to continue to say that they didn't find a single agent that caused whatever at the Bassi High. Of the millions, they couldn't identify a specific one. That is what it was saying. But people took it upon themselves for whatever reason, ulterior motive, whatever reason, to put it over that way. Now, I spoke about the physical factors that might create problems, and thus it might take 3 years to do whatever once they're going back to that site. There is a psychological problem which might be even bigger than the physical problem. You have students who are quite aware that they were told that the makeshift arrangement at Bassi High, why it came about. So they still have that ingrained in that gray matter that lies between the two ears. They have that. They were promised to be placed in a different environment, in a state-of-the-art Bassi High School. Now, to reverse that decision and put them back on the same compound, in the same environment where they were hoping not to return, can have a psychological impact on the minds of teachers and students alike. Teachers could decide that they don't want to go down there to teach. They prefer to go and look job elsewhere. They'll ask for transfers. Parents might say, look, I send in my children school somewhere else. And if you got to go private school, we go private school, we do whatever. All those are possibilities that can happen as a result of putting back the Basia High School in this said on this said old compound. What might be better if you don't want to build on the suggested site at Ponds Extension, then you could not build there, but you must find an alternate site other than going back to the old Basia High School compound, because then you remove that psychological adverse impact that it could have on the persons who would have to be within that environment. A better choice would be not to build on the old compound, but find an alternate site. That would go much better than going back to that old site. Even if you were to go to a new site and you reduce, because persons would have already gone and looked at the plans, persons were talking to children and other persons with respect to what features the new Bastia High School, the said state-of-the-art Bastia High School, would have had. When you change that and you give them something less than what was promised, that too can cause adverse psychological impact. Because you have many parents, guardians, the general public looking forward to the state of the Bastia High School. The fact that you wouldn't put it there, I don't know if you might get the acreage of land to put something similar to the exact plan that you have. Because that too, if other than that, it could have adverse psychological impact. Even with the alternative site, it could have that impact. And to go to the old site is double jeopardy for children, teacher, and everybody else who had high expectations of going to a state-of-the-art Bastia High School. I often listen to radio programs whenever I get an opportunity to. And there is a gentleman who would always call in and say, by building a Bastia High School, you're creating distinction, stratification amongst the different high schools, because here we go again with Bastia High School being the prime school. Sandy Point might want one, Sadlers might want one, Vultures might want one, Cairn might want one. But we cannot think like that. The person is not incorrect, but to take that as a lead, to say once you do a state-of-the-art Bastia High, it can reintroduce the idea that Bastia High is the supreme or the prime high school in the Federation. It's not like you deliberately abandon that site and decide to put a state-of-the-art Bastia High School, you know. It just happened to coincide with the need for a new school. And they decide, okay, let us utilize the opportunity to put on a state-of-the-art Bastia High School. I don't even know if you want to say Bastia High, a state-of-the-art school. Because at that state-of-the-art school, other students from other high schools can come and do things on that compound. Come and do things on that compound. It's not like the compound would be only for Bastia High School students and teachers, but you're just utilizing the coincidence that a school is needed and there's a plan to put on a state-of-the-art high school. So we need to stop spread things and put children and parents to develop a particular mindset that we're only thinking about Bastia High. This thing about Bastia High don't get diluted into insignificance already, where people used to claim that they put the better teachers at Bastia High, and that is finished away with. When we get our reports from the performance of the students, we see how they are doing so nicely. When we look at track and field, we still have Vorchals and Sandy Point leading the way. And Bastia High School basically at a disadvantage when it comes to track and field because Sandy Point High would have persons from first form, second form, third form, fourth form, fifth form competing. So they could compete at different categories. Bastia High never used to have first form, second form. They used to have from third form to fifth form. So therefore Sandy Point used to come in with an advantage. First, second, third, fourth, fifth. Bastia used to have just third, fourth, fifth. And then they had the sixth form part of it. But most of the time you had persons in sixth form concentrating more on the academics rather than on putting out efforts in sporting ventures. And then eventually now they would have had the makeshift system. I think maybe a year or two before that, they got the first form, second form. So it kind of even out. So in between sports, you still have the good competition between Vorchals, Bastia High. But Bastia High would always have a larger number, maybe 800 students, Sandy Point maybe between 400 and 550, Vorchals maybe around 350, 400, 425. You don't know. It's just the volume, because Bastia High basically serve an area where the population is larger. So some consultations would have to be had. So discussions can be listened to. And decision makers would have to go there with open minds so that you absorb. You're not going to take everything on board. You're going to take the sum and substance out of the better ideas that are given at those consultations and see how best we can rebuild that Bastia High School. It is unfortunate that they might not be able to get a Bastia High School within the next 2 years. Like I said, it might take at least 3 years to put down something proper. So those persons in second form currently, they might not be able to experience the new Bastia High School because they might have completed fifth form by that time. But definitely those in third, fourth, and fifth, it's a no-no. You had persons who started Bastia High School on the same compound where they are now and would have completed Bastia High School at that makeshift facility. If we had more cooperation, those children ought to have moved from that temporary site long time ago. Up there is very uncomfortable. The classroom, them hot. Sometimes the children, when you talk to them, you hear them say that they deliberately did something. So the teacher can ask them to go outside so they can actually get some fresh air. Class is them hot. Hot, 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 hot. I don't talk about when you had the COVID situation that caused them to have to introduce the shift system. I think sometimes when schools suffer setbacks, the promptitude to which they address the issues is lacking. I talk about Molyneux Primary School already, and that would forever be an issue for me. Monies are there. We are told that monies are there for that. We are now told that physical planning and public works, those are the bottlenecks in getting the school up and running again. We need to come better than that. We have to come better than that. And we have a tendency of putting up structures, and we want political points so badly that we hustle off, we hurry off, and we put down a structure that is only 80% what it was supposed to be. Every time elections around the corner. And some major capital project is to be completed. It is a half done or less than half done. The CFBC, that's a perfect example. And that is why at times they have to do such extensive repairs. The solid waste, they had two major cells up there where they were supposed to put in a ceiling at the bottom to prevent the leachate. When organic materials start to decay, they produce a leachate that would go downwards into the soil. And to prevent that, they'll have to put a bottom ceiling. That was only done with one cell at the solid waste. One cell they prepared. And whatever happened to the chief or principal person who was taking care of that project, it was never completed. The solid waste at Connery is an incomplete capital project. As a matter of fact, that one cell would have been filled and out of commission for a while because you just cannot continue throwing in and building it up like a mountain. So they are now dumping in an alternative site. And where they are dumping, that is not proper. They're not supposed to be dumping any garbage there whatsoever. They're only supposed to do that for a period of time, a very short period of time, where they took time to work on the second cell, but that is not happening. We have a way in St. Kitts to take temporary structures and put some degree of permanence to them because we're not following up in a timely manner. Where they're dumping garbage right now over at Connery, technically it is illegal. They're not supposed to be doing it. There should be a lot concern about what is happening over there. Because Bastille Valley Aquifer, things going on there from in Connery, because you don't have the bottom of where they're dumping stuff right now sealed. And that is a major, major issue. But nobody talking about that. Nobody talking about that. They need to get the second cell prepared so that the illegal dumping that they're now carrying out. Maybe Talbot had a good idea when he said he's going to move it. Some people look at it on the surface because he said he's going to move it. And I guess what he really meant to say that it's going to be relocated because there were times when government were trying to get an alternative site for the landfill. Because every time, when you have a landfill, you have to manage the landfill during construction. You have to manage it during operation. You have to manage it after it would have served its purpose. Because there's always methane gas being produced. And once you have that heat under there, there's a very high probability that you'll have a lot of fires even after you'd have closed off a landfill. So that is why sometimes you go over there and you see fire burning for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. Because the methane gas, once it's under there, until it is all used up, the fire would not stop. They were supposed to put some lining to take the methane and have it piped away. They did not do that. So therefore, that landfill over at Connery will forever be having the occasional fires, and they'll be lasting a long time because they did absolutely nothing to pipe off the methane that is naturally produced when you put waste over there. So that capital project was really incomplete, but somebody wanted political mileage and declared that there was an opening and whatever. But they prepare one cell instead of two. There's no piping for the methane gas. We're going to forever be having, we're going to be ever having gas fire over there, and I understood what the gentleman meant when he said he's going to move it, abandon that, and put it somewhere else in the country. When the wind blows, it would blow onto the sea, rather than leaving Connery and affecting people in the New Road area. And that was a very good suggestion, because we have become quite complacent regarding the management and smooth operation of the landfill. I think it's high time we give Connery people an ease. Take it down between Debby and St. Paul's. The breeze come off and it goes that way. Anytime you have fire at the landfill, and like I said, fire would always be associated with a landfill, even after you stop using it. The particulates that go along with the smoke will always impact people. And somehow we have a modern day society with more and more persons having allergies and having asthma. It's time we start to take our time and do things and forget about the political mileage that can be had. Do it properly the first time and maintain. We seem as if a structure would have to deteriorate 25% of its worth in order for them to start doing repairs. You must always make provision for maintenance expenses to be covered whenever you do a major capital project in the form of a building. We have to. A lot of our monies would have been wasted because of insufficient planning. You place there when you leave Sandy Point and going Newton Ground side. Much money we wasted in that area. I'm simply saying that we have to be mindful that the psychological impact that the relocation of the site at the Bastia High School could have on children and people in general. Some persons might want to pretend that it is okay because they're trying to support the party's position. But we got to forget about politics sometimes. Okay, putting that on the aquifer, okay, we're against that, you're against that, we could understand. But putting it back where it was before could have a very adverse impact on the minds of those who have to occupy the area and those who are sending children to be in that environment. You wake up 8 o'clock and you're out on the compound until 4 o'clock. Calculate those hours, 5 days a week. Some teachers have the extra classes up there and children spend a long, long time there. So for you to be mentally impacted for that duration of time, they have to take the mental aspect, the psychological aspect into consideration and not just barely putting back something there because somebody said they used to go Bastia High and they want the school to remain, they want this and they want that. But we got to move on. I went to school there too. A lot of people went to school there. Is there a Bastia Boys School? How many persons went Bastia Boys School? How many persons went Bastia Girls School? They did not combine the two of them and call them Beach Island. People make noise and say keep them separated. We have to move on. All who saying they want the Bastia High School because that was the school and they have a sense of pride, they got a value to them. You pack up your damn car and go back on a donkey. We used to use those before. So that's the kind of mentality that you have. God, this is my old school and this name is fancy name and I got to be a part of it and we want it standing. You pack up your car, take up a donkey, gas expensive, save your gas money, and take your backside on a donkey and ride it around. Why must you put back the children there with such a psychological impact that it would be having? I'm not in favor of that. Whenever the discussions are held, whatever input I can make, I shall make my input. The science indicated that it could have gone there. Okay, something could have gone wrong because we have a poor history of maintaining structures. But I like saying, you ain't gonna walk down the street because a car could knock you down. So stay home. Everybody stay home. Anytime you step out your house, there's a possibility, regardless of how high the probability may be, you get knocked down, so stay home. The science was there. The effluent would be off. And then you had some people who really trying to use their public presence to accentuate the fact that it is not good. We use the science for COVID. Some of us use it to take the vaccine. Some of us use it not to take the vaccine. Some of us are guided by science. The science tells us that this is what is what is what. So how come we don't want to use it? But with the history we have, I could say, okay then, since you feel something would happen, let us put it elsewhere. But my appeal would be, do not put it back on the old compound. Let us take a break, acknowledge our sponsor, and we'll be back.
If you have a dream, what are you waiting for? The Development Bank has what you need and more. We aim to build stronger communities. That's why we have so many opportunities. Business loans, student loans, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah, financing your dream home, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah. Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis. We make a sustained positive difference in your life.
Welcome to the customer support portal, where we have made it easier for you to contact us. It starts with your question, email, a message, phone call, or a search on our website. Our CSP provides prompt and efficient solutions to your problems. We pride ourselves on treating our clients responsibly and ensuring your information is kept safe. Log on to www.skndb.net and send us a ticket or email us at customersupport@skndb.com. You may also call us directly at 869-465-2288, extension 1322, or 954-353-1003.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor.
Where is one? Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war.
Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor. Every Thursday night from 8 to 10.
Welcome back to Fear No Favor. I want to touch on a very...
Good night, good night, Nital.
Yeah, good night. Sorry.
You have guests there with you?
No, you are going to be my guest remotely.
Okay. Well, as usual, eh?
Yes.
The ear them clean because I use a lot of Q-tip regular.
So you heard what I was saying prior?
No.
Okay.
No, the wind that's coming out of the northeast. I didn't hear what you said. You talk and then I'm going to make a little input.
What happened is that The last issue I dealt with was the Bastia High School.
Yeah, okay.
You
yeah.
know that it is said that they're going to put it back on the old compound.
Then lately,
Yes, but I don't believe that that would be a good thing because psychologically it would impact the students and persons who are sending the children there. If you do not agree to put it up there where the Bastia Aquifer is and you want to put it elsewhere, do not put it over where the old compound was. You could find an alternative site.
let me make a 1 second interject here.
Yes.
It was and it still is a reason why they had to remove from the old compound.
Yes.
Go ahead now.
And if you're going to put it on the old compound, you'll have to dig up that compound, make sure you don't have any cross contamination of the water pipe, sewage, and potable water. And if you can't find the blueprint, my understanding that the blueprint them after some hurricane were destroyed from over by Public Works. If you cannot find the piping, one time they were looking for piping and they dug up the Bastia High School yard, only to find the pipe down underneath the stage in Carnival City. So they would have to do a lot of cleaning up, a lot of cleaning up before they could put it back there. I am saying that the psychological impact it would have on these people who would be utilizing the compound, that is too much of a risk, and people might not be concentrating the way they're supposed to concentrate. If you don't want to put it over there in the Bastia Valley Aquifer, find an alternate site, but do not put it back on the old compound.
I am on the ship, the same board, the same ship with you from bow to stone. You can't put it big because psychologically, from the moment people know that they have to go in there, it starts to act on them. And like you said, they have to dig very, very deep to get the contaminants from that area there. Because it is not like something you could see with your eyes.
That's right.
It is like GERMS, germs,
Pathogens.
bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Because to see bacteria, you must put on, what do you call them there?
Electronic microscope.
Right, over your eyes to see them. And when you see them, you want to know if it's that you've been consuming all the time. So don't put it back there. My thing is that don't put it back for in other place for it.
That's right.
If you don't want to go up there because you're putting up water aquifer in front as a reason to not go up there, for in other place. For in other place, even if you have to go up in the air, go up. And let me make one little input before I go, and then I'm going to call back again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, animals, wild animals, can only be tamed when they want to be tamed. If you have a dog, and you put down the dog bowl there with the food in it, and the dog don't put in him out and he in there eating, and even if you take out the head and you right there by the bowl, he's not going far from the bowl. You don't go put your hand on the bowl to lift it up, eh? Because the dog will cut you up.
That's right. You're correct.
Yeah, I have seen it done to a gentleman, a well-established electrician in St. Kitts. He lived on Point. I was in the hospital. And when I see the condition of the man's hand, I said, what happened to you? He told me he dog bite him up. I said, what happened? You were beating it? He said, no. He put down the food in the bowl to feed it, and he was eating. And he only went to move the bowl to a different location. And the dog grabbed on in hand and cut him up. So in that to say this, when you don't put on the dog food, you can't take it away. The dog will cut you up. Jesus never spoke straight. He always speak in parable. When Satan went and tell him, if you be the Son of God, turn them stone into bread. Jesus could have given him a different answer to what he gave him. But Jesus tell him, well, you know, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. Jesus could have told him, well, I'm going to turn this stone into bread, but you had to bring the relish. But he just gave him a cool answer, turn him away. So I am saying this, when you don't start to give me food, don't take it away. Let me eat until I belch, and if I say, well, okay, thank you, this is all I want, I don't need no more, so you could do this, I'll do that with it. That's a parable. So go ahead, let me hear you now.
Yeah, and I made reference to Connery, the landfill. Told them it was never completed because they were supposed to complete two cells. They were supposed to put a line in at the bottom to prevent the leachate when the material started rotten from going into Bastille Valley Aquifer. Some people feel it's only upon the aquifer really is. But it start all the way up the road. You'll be surprised to know the extension of that Bastille Valley Aquifer.
Look,
And I'm saying that since they don't have the ceiling, where they put in the garbage right now, it's illegal. They're not supposed. That was supposed to be a makeshift for a period of 2-3 months. But it's been going on now for years.
yes.
And maybe too, I indicated that maybe when Talbot said he was going to move the landfill, he meant that where we were going to consider to be the landfill, it would be elsewhere. Because Connery and Monkey Hill people, whenever there's a landfill fire, the smoke and the particulate, the Hamburg people over in that area.
Exactly.
And you need to take it down between maybe Depp Bay and St. Paul's, that when the smoke comes off,
You
it
just go
goes
for it.
out to sea,
Right.
rather than go where people have their communities established. Yeah, I really don't know.
That is
The landfill is incomplete.
I have heard Bridges on the radio say that just what you say. There was supposed to be some kind of a lining underneath.
In two cells, yes.
Right, I've heard it, but it was never done.
Only one was done.
Okay.
So the one is completely filled. They have no place to put the garbage. So they put it in a makeshift area. And the makeshift area is not protecting the Bastille Valley Aquifer. The leachate still going down there unchecked.
Okay, look here. If some people could remember, because, some people cannot remember the most recent things that happened. But they could remember things from way back when Columbus was spying with the binoculars and say, he gonna go discover, think it.
Yes.
My thought just shifted away, But anyway, when the thought come back, because oh yes, I got it now.
That's good.
If they could remember when Mr. Limo Courthouse was being rebuilt, we had leakage in the street for months and lap over 2 years and 2 years until the courthouse done. Right in the water, and that come from the water table. It was not seawater or fresh water. I went down there and I examined, I tested, and I drink from it. I said, that is pure water coming from up in the heights. So it had to come down from up Monkey Hill, so it come past under the police station and Warner Park and all them there. So the day all over the water aquifer gone. Not just up there where they're going to build the school. And if the water engineer them never look at the problem that it could cause, they would not have developed, come with the water treatment plant where they're going to put up there by the school. So that no kind of wastage would have contaminated neither the sea nor go down in the earth. Because they would have something up there to
They were going to pipe it off. They were going to pipe it off to an area. They were going to pipe it off and then get it treated and everything else. You know, collect.
That's the word I meant, treated. Yeah. But you see, here's McWays. I will steady with that.
But you see, the Bastille is below sea level,
Oh, yeah,
And
I
that
know
is
that.
why they had so much problems doing the courthouse. And they had problems doing Development Bank and National Bank because the water table is just there. And maybe when you tasted the water at the time, because fresh water is less dense than salt water, you had fresh water floating on the seawater because the table is just there. So whatever came down maybe got deposited onto the salt water. But then if they took water from there long enough, the fresh water that you tasted, they would have had an intrusion of salt, and the water would eventually turn salty. That's like what we have at Bastille Valley. You have salt, fresh water floating and salt water. So when they take out, the Gulf Coast, they use a lot of water. If they take off too much off of the surface of the salt water, then you have salt water intrusion, because you have what you call the safe yield. You could only take off X amount, and with these lot of golf courses that they had over frigate bed, impacting our water, potable water. That is what was happening. They had to abandon a few wells because the salt water got mixed up with the fresh water. And that's why they got an area they call a well field. So when salt water interferes with this one, they go a different site and they drill for a different well.
Well, Brother Nital, listen here. I'm glad you touched the golf course. That golf course over there, it is me and a fellow from Old named John Coram. They transfer us from up the airport with our two big scrapers to build the golf course over there with a man from South Africa named Max Wexler. He was the architect. So he would have the blueprint, and we would come with the sand, and he would direct us what shape he wanted in. But let me tell you this, you see all those pool of water over the golf course? It had a crane from Trinidad with a drag link. And there is where he get the sand from to build those tees and what they call them over there. He just start digging, and the pool them full up with water from underneath. All of them. So when he got down to the depth that they want, he leave the one and he go and he dig another one and dig another one. And when he completed all the pool them by digging them, the last thing that he did, he opened up way up north of the golf course, way up the closest area of the course to the seawater, and they bust a trench and let in a little bit of seawater, and fishes come in. Because I used to go over there any night. While I was walking there, go over there any night with a line go fishing in the most northern pool over there. So that is where the portion of water come from, underground, because it is below sea level.
Yes.
And like up Newton Pans Pasture where the fire station is, all up there was a swamp. And if you go up there and go dig a foundation, let's say you're going to dig a hole to make a septic tank, you're going to mix seawater. You're bound to do it, because I experienced that. I was doing something up there for somebody, and when just the footing alone, I see water there.
Remember, people up on Pasture used to got problem flushing the toilets, you know.
Yes, because when you flush, the pressure from the
high.
sea.
Right.
Yes, man. You won't go down.
Right.
Yeah, anyway, I can't hear you on the radio, so let somebody else come in. Good night, Miss Henry. She tell me I must come out here quick.
Okay.
Yeah, the noise. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, all the best.
Okay, take care, culture. Now, another area that we want to look at is students' loans. We have persons who would have gone away to study, and they are paying back students' loan. I don't know why students do not make it a point of discussion when elections coming up, that they give some discount on existing student loans or the write off some student loans debt. Because some persons might have gone to study. They might have studied, for example, say physics, but they realize they cannot apply what they would have learned after a number of years. So they would really like to do something different. But because they are stuck here paying back that student loan for the first degree that they did, they do not have the financial flexibility to go again. So even though they're here operating, they're not getting any gratification from doing what they're doing, so they want to change. But that student loan is like a noose around their necks. And that is why, to a lot of persons who would have been exposed to studying already, they're just here like marking time, wasting time, because they would rather prefer to be doing something else. Technology would have taken off, and if you can just decrease their commitment, their obligation to paying back these loans, You could free them up to do something that we're really in need of right now. Some persons are underpaid, underemployed, because they cannot find job in the area that they went to study or qualify themselves for. So they have to make do with whatever they're getting because they cannot get employment in the precise or specific field for which they went to study. You have to be very, very careful. People need to be relieved of some of this indebtedness with respect to students' loan so they could explore other avenues that can better benefit our federation. Once again, everybody wants to go into business administration, this and that, it's easy to pass, this, that. And then you come back to compete with the same persons for jobs. I think that they need to do something that can guide people as to what is the best possible area you should pursue in order to make yourself most marketable upon return. Unless if you do not get a job that is directly related to your field of expertise, you're going to be underemployed. And in my opinion, when you add up and add up and add up all these underemployed situations, there can be tantamount to unemployment. Because if somebody's half employed, another one is half employed, when you add the two halves, that's a whole. That's equivalent to an unemployed person. If somebody's quarterly employed, another one quarterly employed, another one quarterly employed, another one quarterly employed, 4 of them quarterly employed. That means when you add those 3 quarts, that's about 3 persons. 4 3 is 12, 4 into 12 goes to 3 persons unemployed. We have to start thinking about ways to give people debt relief. Some person been paying back student loans for over 10 years, 15 years. Sometimes it's just the interest that is moving. You cannot be progressive in your brain capacity of a federation. Cannot be progressive in that area if you have persons stuck with a first degree and cannot move on. How many persons would like to go and do a master's in a different area? How many persons? But the flexibility is not there. The financial commitment. And I wonder how come year after year, election after election after election, nobody pressuring the politicians them to give them some debt relief from the studies that they would have done. We got to be a little more appreciative. Now, when people leave and go overseas, you talk about brain drain. But while they're here, we're not doing anything to accommodate them. You go to study and you come back, you seem as if you're in a worse position than those who did not go anywhere. Those who finished with the O level, the A level, didn't go anywhere but just continue to work. You end up with your student loan to pay. So you have to subtract that from your salary before you could start comparing with others who did not go anywhere. And because you went to study, you like to live a certain type of lifestyle. You might want a house. You go and you commit yourself to a mortgage. Your mortgage start to come out. So you're getting much less than persons who just got mere O levels or A levels. Because you went to study to better your living condition, to better your financial position. But in your quest to do all that, your net disposable income is way below persons who maybe just top out a sixth form or just did CSEC. Because there are so many things to be deducted. You got to purchase, you got to pay a mortgage. You got to buy furniture and stuff for your house. And don't talk about you want flexibility in moving around because I'm a college graduate. I want to be driving a vehicle. And then when you finish all that, the net disposable income is $55. And then your neighbors start to laugh at you. You have car, but you got to catch bus because you ain't got no money to put no gas in your vehicle. We have to do something about persons who would have invested in studying. We could do better. And not one time they say you can come home with this and come home with that and don't pay once you're doing it for the first time. But we need more than that. There are many persons who are willing to come home. Remember most of them out in the U.S. So when they work for $1,000 US out there, that is basically 2,700 EC. They might be able to send home 1,000 EC monthly. They might be able to do that. But then when they come home now, $1 is $1 in a man country. The whole thing would change up. And that is what preventing so many persons from coming back home, even some of them who have scholarships or loan commitments. Some of them, they say they will stay overseas because if they're working for US and they're paying back, they're servicing the loan, then the convergency aspect of it, the convergence aspect, would cause them to be in a better position. We have to start seeing what we can do to get our brains them coming back home. I believe too many times, too often, we have to rely on foreign consultancy. Foreign consultants would have to come in. And we'll be surprised the type of persons we have out there. Maybe even much better than those the foreigners who we consult with. But they can't come to stay. And maybe that is why we have so many of our voters, people coming from overseas to vote. Apart from the fact that everybody, every Kittian, would not be able to make it in the native land. You also have those who have jobs out there holding. And if they come home, they might not be able to deal with their dependents in the same as if they were overseas, sending home the remittances. We got to try to do some higher degree of thinking. To me, we are not putting these things together and brainstorming sufficiently, and we just end up in a position where what is will just continue to be. And it cannot be like that. Cannot be like that. We have very intelligent and qualified persons. Good evening. Welcome to Fear in Our Favor.
Okay, I return.
Yes.
Some years ago, I do not know if you had any knowledge of it, but some years ago, there was a radio station, and that radio station is still in existence, and it's the Caribbean. I'm not going to say which island it is, and I ain't going to call the name or nothing. But there was a problem in the environment where the radio station was. And one of the announcers suddenly dead. And they could not understand what it was that killed him. And then after the second announcer dead, the same way, suddenly, then they did the research and the studies and the what, and they find out what the problem was. And the problem was caused by some military apparatus what they had in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And one had to be moved. I don't remember which one moved, but no other radio announcer dead.
Maybe they had radioactive material
Mm-hmm.
in the area.
That's exactly what happened. The word you use because you study science,
Mm-hmm.
so you know the name of those things. And it had everybody shocked with, how come them two men just dead in pow, they're dead. Nobody shoot them, they're just dead like that. But the radioactive thing,
Radioactive, yes. Substance.
yeah, it went where it should not have gone. So therefore, I'm saying that to say this. The old saying is that 1 ounce of prevention.
Better
Yeah.
than a whole pound of cure.
Well, are you going further than a pound? Are you going to a ton? But a pound is so close that you use a small amount to show you is better than that. So let us take precaution. Once bitten, show it twice.
But do you know that as we drill, they have rocks that contain gases that are carcinogenic?
Well, I
They
believe
could
you.
cause cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And that is why you have to be mindful of when you're drilling in certain areas, because you have gas, even if you're not drilling well, the gas given off by those rocks, they can cause cancer. We don't know what's going on with our aquifer, you know. One time they were supposed to do an analysis and keep it there as a reference point. For example, if you have substance A, B, and C,
Yeah.
and you test them today, you must be able to go back next year and test them and see if you had an increase in concentration of A, B, or C. And if A, B, or C affects somebody from a physiological perspective, you should be able to say that we're having an increase in this. So we have to see what we got to do. We don't have any analysis being done of our that Bastia Valley water, and we need to have it done.
You mean with all the years, they have so many technicians and nobody do that?
No, they did not do anything. If you don't know what you're looking for, how you gonna know when you find it?
Okay.
So they could assume that this is not in the water, that is not in the water, but that might not be true. You only look for what you're looking for. You meet up what you're looking for, but if you're not testing for a particular chemical, how would you know whether or not the chemical is there?
So you're not looking for it.
Right.
So you're looking for what you want to look for, and you find what you're looking for.
If
You're
I-
looking for the other things around.
If I come lodge by you and you say, and I say, culture pass that there for me, what are you going to pass to me?
That.
Right, and what is that? You understand?
I'm going to write down the word that.
Right, so you have to be mindful that we got to be more scientific around here. We got to encourage science and technology. We are not doing sufficient. We're not doing sufficient at all. Our Bastia Valley aquifer might well be contaminated with stuff that we might not be aware of because we're not testing for them. I think it is time that the government and whatever other authorities to make a list of possible contaminants of our water and start testing, develop our multipurpose lab and start testing to see to what extent those things are present. And we're getting a lot of water from the well now. Remember we used to get surface water with our catchment?
Yep.
It used to be 67% surface water and 33% well water. Now it is a reverse situation. Most of our water coming from wells. And anything coming from down within the earth, you don't know what the contaminants could be.
Exactly, brother. Because again, when you look at it, we don't know the level. When I say the level, I mean the height of some the water wells to these close enough to these soakaway that have been built over the years. And when you got so many soakaway in one area, they must come together close. They must come close enough together sometime, you know. And they're gonna reach one, gonna reach the other.
Water we are finding its course.
That's right. That's right.
Culture, if you look at where our wells are, you don't see how vulnerable we are from a biological warfare. If somebody was against petitions and they decide that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, what is there in the vicinity of the wells to prevent them from doing it? Our water system is not secure properly. Our wells should be enclosed. People must not have free access to those areas.
I agree with that.
Somebody could just go off, maybe slip off, or got a reason not to like petitions, and just go and do things. You understand? Our wells should be better protected. Look at Wingfield area. You used to got some people coming off a ship or visiting and going up there in the water, go bathe their skin.
I heard about them.
And then that water supposed to come down to us and be piped to us
To drink.
for consumption. You have people grazing animals above a particular contour. And whenever the animals them defecate up there, the rainwater will wash them into the catchment area. And that is why they said do not graze animals above a particular contour. But people still doing it. Because me party in power, me this and that, and nobody going up to police them.
That's true.
How you let people bathe inside of the water that we had to consume?
That should have never been allowed. Not even to go near it.
Our water security is at a law. They need to improve on that. Our wells should be better secured. Our catchment area should be off limit. Don't care how much you say they want to see. We could do well without the patronizing our catchment. That's supposed to be out of bounds.
Exactly, man. That's why.
What kind of money you could raise by having people going up there and make it worse bathing inside of the damn thing and forced to consume?
And then you know the kind of people who would do that.
I know.
Yeah.
And
they
you
don't
know
care.
too.
Imagine when I went to St. Thomas first, we live 1980. Me and one of them become good friends. And he come tell me some nonsense one morning. If I want he to teach me how to skydive. I said, what you mean by that? He said, we're going up in a plane and we jump out. I said, why should I leave down here where I'm comfortable on the ground and go up there and jump out to come back down? I said, hey, I love my life, okay? God give this to me, and I got to carry it until I can't carry it no more. But I ain't going to do no ignorance with all you, so see you. You can't be my friend. And then if he did, with that. Now, some years ago,
but wait,
they
have a desalination plant down Subbase, right?
Yeah. That's where they get the water from.
Yeah, man, the water tastes horrible, but that is what they have to do. Because fresh water is a problem down there. We're going to have to start building some desalination plants.
We have to. That's the way to go down.
And I think we got to stop procrastinating and expedite the process.
That's right.
We're balling about water. Every year we ball and we're not putting up what we're supposed to put up.
No, they ain't doing it.
They put one over at Frigate Bay. But then they were short-sighted in that because the water was being returned to the marine environment. It was so salt. So the fish them could not survive and they had to change the feeding grounds. So what they did now, they had to do something you call dilution ponds. So when they come from the desalination plant, the brine is a very concentrated salt solution. It will pass through the various ponds before it returns to the sea environment.
And you heard about Canil Bay Resort in St. John?
As much
it's
as
it's not one big building. It's close to the beach, and they got the cottages and so. That little environment, that little business place, they got their own desalination planting because I used to drive water truck for a man on weekends down there and go there, go collect that desalinated water and take it to projects. And when I said, I mean, little St. John got this here, boy. And then St. Thomas got their own, the big one. Because they don't have no mountain to draw no water. But they got places where they could dig well. Now, I was telling you something some years ago, a lot of years ago. It was said that somebody threw a donkey in an exposed water catchment in St. Kitts. And that there is so open until now. Anything could happen. If anybody don't like Kittitians or anybody who live in St. Kitts, who reside in St. Kitts, and they don't like us, they just go there and they do what they got to do with that.
Yeah, we need to better safeguard our drinking water.
Definitely.
But look, a desalination plant is expensive, because every 99 gallons that you put in is only 33 gallons of fresh water going to come out. 66 will be returned to the environment in the form of brine, very concentrated salt solution. And it takes a lot of electricity to run. So my vision is that they will take the solar panels and put them close to the desalination plant. So it would help to keep down the electricity costs of running the plant, and then we can get water and save on the electricity at the same time. But we need to do something. We're just chatting too much, man.
Yeah, I think so too. Too much of procrastination been going on. Too much of that.
We're chatting too much.
Procrastination does lead to destruction.
And then you're going to tell me 2 hands dirty, just wash one. If I
Alright.
want to do anything, I use the clean hand, the dirty hand, and leave it, so.
Yeah.
How you going to tell me that when people got golf course and using up water? I mean, you got to be sensitive. Not because you're paying for the water. We don't pay much for it. So you can't say you're paying for it, so don't tell me that. But at the same time, you're telling people, wash your car once every 3 weeks. You have people watering golf course almost on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And
So the
don't tell me they're getting the water from the wastewater treatment plant, because they also use some potable water. They have a thing out there like a pond where they store potable water. They have a ceiling at the bottom, and it must have a certain poundage in order for the ceiling not to come up, like blow up like a balloon. They have to put a certain poundage on it to keep it down. So they catch rainwater, and they get the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant. But they're out there doing what they have to do.
The mentality of some people is bad, because their mentality is that a certain race of people is better than a certain race.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But we to encourage that, because some of us got inferiority complex,
mhm,
that other people better than us.
definitely, no.
And before they got that, they used to get water from the sewage plant. And they got the thing spraying all over, never tell people where you're not supposed to try to let this thing get in contact with you because you're getting pathogens. Because at that time, they never had that level of treatment. I've been walking out there amongst them, and I just observe to see how they instruct people not to get this thing on your skin and whatever because of the pathogen. And it's like a fine spray. So something you inhale it up your nostrils. Now they might be better off. I don't know. The treatment plant might be giving you better effluent. Some of them ain't like when I talk about it on the radio, because they feel like the golf courses must be maintained, and it take a lot of water to maintain those golf courses.
Yeah, but people life supposed to be sustained too.
Place at risk
Right.
because
So,
of the pathogen inside of the water.
so which is more important,
Them, the color.
the grass or people life?
The color.
Mm-hmm. Come in and do what you want. Do what you want. You go hit a black man and slap in the face, and he goes so. The black man turn on and bust your back and slap. Now he's a load of big talk.
I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
Let us suppose that we're not able to rerun the elections. But let us suppose that we are going to take the information off the papers and see persons who were here like a week leading up to elections, and you do a run. You think the results would be close to what it ended up being?
It wouldn't be close.
Just use local people. Now, I didn't
Yeah.
want to say, well, stay out if you're out.
Okay.
But let us suppose that you were here with maybe just 3 days prior to the election.
Mm-hmm.
If you were able to,
Wait, hold on. If you were here,
3 days before the election,
yeah, and then after the 3 days, what happened? Where you be? You still here? You gone somewhere?
that is, let us forget about those who are overseas. Let us suppose we
Okay.
remove those
Okay.
and deal with those who live here permanently.
Right, they're in the wing.
Right.
Yeah.
How you think the election might have turned out? This is a discussion we would have
Yeah.
next time, but I'm just trying to
Yeah,
say
it
for
will,
the
it
last
will, it will
minute.
turn out different. It will turn out, look how we turn out 2015 and 2020.
Because some people got planes to come in. Some did not. Some people got persons to fund the planes them coming. Some did not have that level of financing.
Right.
And maybe that is something that we have to pay attention to.
That is like you put in a heavyweight in there to fight with a welterweight. And the heavyweight gloves are in 16 ounce, and the welterweight one is 2 ounces in a ring, two backs.
We don't want to discuss that next week.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier, but I still feel like I would like to know what it would have been like if we just utilize persons on the ground Not
Well-
persons who go in. Whether they're sending no remittance, it doesn't matter. But
Right.
persons on the ground who live here permanently.
Yeah, because I mean, come on, it's who live here on the ground, see what's going on every day and what's supposed to be done to make the country better. So therefore, we will do what we can to make our country better. If you don't love your country, you should get out of it.
But the reality is that sometimes people overseas know more about your country than you, because sometimes people call me to let me know what's going on here.
Yeah, you see? Yeah,
The internet, you
That's
see.
right. That's right.
Yeah, so something you have to give way to the fact that they might know because it's on the internet.
But let me tell you something about the Nital, and I think you were there when it happened too. Remember Gassi?
We have 1 minute left. Go ahead.
Okay. I say it all the time, and I'm going to say it again. I love my country so much that nobody could pay me to sell out my conscience with my country. Otherwise, I would have done sell it out to St. Martin when Gassi manager tell me.
You did say that.
Okay. No, I love my country. It doesn't matter who and what. I born here. I could live other places, but this is mine, and I have to look out for other people who have to live here. If you can't do something right, don't do it wrong. That is my thing.
And there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Right, and when I do what is right, I have no apology to nobody but my conscience and God.
Okay.
Yeah, until next week, man.
Yes, culture.
All the best. Bless up.
On that note, we have come to the end of our session for tonight. I'd like to say thanks for those who messaged and the one or two persons who called. And a special thank you to our sponsor, the Development Bank, for the continued supply of oxygen for the sustenance of this all-important social program. Thank you.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program are not those of the owners, advertisers, and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3. Nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
If you have a dream, what are you waiting for? The Development Bank has what you need and more. We aim to build stronger communities. That's why we have so many opportunities. Business loans, student loans, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah, financing your dream home, we make a positive difference in your life, in your life, in your life, in your life. Yeah. Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis. We make a sustained positive difference in your life.
Welcome to the customer support portal, where we have made it easier for you to contact us. It starts with your question, email, a message, phone call, or a search on our website. Our CSP provides prompt and efficient solutions to your problems.